Well, good morning and welcome to another edition of Family Matters brought to you by Men Are Part of the Solution, or MAPS, and Arctic Radio, which includes CHTM in Thompson, CJR in DePauw, and CFAR in Flin Flon. MAPS provides counseling through its Healthy Relations program as well as the provision for transitional housing for men and women. Today, I'm very happy to have as our guest Helen Trudeau, the Executive Director of the Thompson Crisis Center since September of last year, right,
Yeah,
Helen?
yeah.
So, Helen, where are you from?
I'm originally from Snow Lake, Manitoba.
Oh, Snow Lake, a beautiful place.
hmm
I haven't been there for a while now. So you've gotten used to being here in Thompson over the last 6 months?
No, I actually been in Thompson since 1992, and I came to do my nursing
Oh, excellent. Okay.
and decided to stay on.
Stay on now. Excellent. So you're a true northerner. Well, welcome and thank you for taking the time to talk to us about the Thompson Crisis Center. It came to mind because you just recently had your AGM just
hmm
last month, I believe, and you know, even though I thought I knew a fair bit about the crisis center, I learned a lot during that AGM of things that I just didn't really think about. So my first quick question for you, Helen, just for everyone listening, what's the mandate of the Thompson Crisis Center, and what are the different programs and services it provides?
Okay, first of all, I just want to say that the Thompson Crisis Center carries out its work on the original lands of Treaty 5, Cree, and the homeland of Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past,
Yes.
and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So in saying that, we serve Thompson, the urban center, as well as the surrounding communities, the outlying communities. So all of northern Manitoba
Okay.
and the surrounding townships like Woboden,
Okay.
Leaf Rapids, Lynn Lake. So anyway, our mission statement about us, in the 1980s, women's shelters across Manitoba, they began to work together to provide support, training, and information for improved services for clients. The organization was incorporated in August 11th of 1977 as the Thompson Crisis Center. So our mandate, we value families and their rights. The Thompson Crisis Center Incorporated works to eradicate family violence in society by providing families and communities with tools to enhance growing, encourage violence-free living, and promote healthier outcomes. The Crisis Center is dedicated to providing a holistic range of services to women and their children who experience physical, sexual, or psychological abuse. Recognizing that violence does not occur in isolation from society, the Thompson Crisis Center works closely with the community organization and partnerships with other organizations and network together. Like with you, for instance, Ozzy, we work
Yeah.
with you through MAPS and also the different organization in Thompson. We value our partnerships and agencies with our partnerships with other agencies and community organizations that help benefit our clients. We're guided by ethical standards and best practices, which we still work and develop and upgrade. We promote continuous self-improvement, lifelong learning, and healthy communities. Respect and dignity is one of the things that guide us in the work that we do. In the spirit of reconciliation, we will strive to provide culturally appropriate services, as well as not just First Nations, but we also look at the groups like landed immigrants.
Hmm.
What do you call that when they're different groups that are?
Oh, yes, the LGBTQ
Yes, yeah,
population.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So we're now opening up our doors for that and building awareness for that as well. So what do we do? What does the Crisis Center do? One of the biggest things that they do is the 24/7 emergency shelter. We provide temporary housing. First thing we look at is number one, safety.
Okay.
And then we do a 24/7 crisis line. This is where we get phone calls from all over the north and
Right.
the different townships. And we work into, if they need to come to us, we work with them to come to us and we create a safety plan. We have a healthy living program, and we have a children's counseling support, community counseling and support through our outreach program. Mary Demare works through that area. Public education is huge, follow-up support, life skills, and we participate in research for improved best practices. And the biggest thing we found ourselves in our work is we're doing a lot of advocacy and referrals, reaching out to other organizations to help to assist us to make a better safety plan for our clients.
Excellent. And you know what is interesting? When I was at your AGM, and aside from the LGBTQ and two-spirited community, I was interested in that you also service men as well,
Yeah.
and which was something that I wasn't. Well, was aware that the Thompson Christ Center did some work in that area, but I wasn't aware of the depths of service that you do provide. Do you want to expand on that a bit?
Well, sometimes, like with the women's shelter here at the crisis center, the shelter is mainly for women, so it makes it harder for men to trying to make that connection with us, because first of all, they're stigmatized, right? With the fact that they've experienced intimate partner violence, so they don't know who to go to, who to talk to, and basically they're scared. They feel isolated with it.
Right.
So, so that's why we, through our outreach, we do a lot of public awareness and education to reach out to that group and say, "Hey, we're here for you as well," and they have phoned.
Yes.
And we have housed them in a different area where they're safe, and we work through MAPS and we work through other community programs to help with their needs.
Okay, and it's amazing the geographical area. I have a good friend of mine who used to work at the Thompson Crisis Center years ago. I remember she had some flights up to Shamattawa, and she was there for a few days. And I know that the operation in Nepal and Flin Flon, probably when you talk about the North, we're talking, I believe, over 50 communities when you include First Nation, urban, industrialized, smaller urban or rural communities. So it's a large area that one has to focus on. So when you look at over the next 12 months to come, what are some, especially you as a new executive director, what are some areas that you feel that you guys want to focus on?
Well, one of the biggest things that as soon as I walked in the door is building public awareness as to who we are. Because we get phone calls asking, like thinking we're a homeless shelter, but we're not. We're here for domestic intimate violence partners. We're also here to serve, like we just stated, men who are also experiencing the same.
Right.
And also the communities, like the LGBT, because we've had experience working with people in those categories and helping them.
Okay.
Because again, too, they felt isolated and didn't know where to go,
Right.
and wasn't sure if they were going to be accepted coming to us by fearing of judgment,
Right.
of who they are, their preferences, everything. And I want to break those barriers. Our whole organization together as a team wants to break those barriers.
Yes.
And also to show that we are here not just for the women and their children. We're here for any person that is experiencing intimate partner violence
Yes.
and needing help. So that's one of the things we're working on is community engagement, getting out there, getting known, working with the different organizations, networking.
Yes, and it's interesting when we just a note aside, in intimate partner violence used to be called a lot domestic violence,
Yeah.
but there's been a change in that to the terminology as well. I was checking out some stats with the RCMP over the last couple of years, and it's very interesting the effect of COVID on the clientele that you service, uh, where with COVID, where you were forced to stay at home more often, even if that home may be one that's unsafe. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the effect of COVID has been on some of the clientele that you work with?
Well, one of the biggest thing is what I'm very grateful for is that we were able to still provide services like shelter, in the crisis center,
Right.
but also having, because of COVID was so bad in this last 2 years, and even now it's hitting harder
Right.
with this fourth wave.
Right.
And one of the things that we had to do is put on restrictions that was laid out by the provincial guidelines, and we
Mm-hmm.
followed them.
Mm-hmm.
What it made it hard was trying to explain that to the families, because
Okay.
nobody likes restrictions. I don't like
Yeah.
restrictions. Everyone hates wearing masks,
Right.
and trying to explain that is part of our education and building awareness for safety for themselves, right? So we can still provide, still remain open. So that was one of the things. It's hard on the families having to be told, you have to stay in your room. You can't visit. Limited outings, even if we have them, because there was one point everything was closed in Thompson. So it becomes a lonely place,
Yeah.
especially when you're facing intimate partner violence, like
Mm-hmm.
violence in any form. You're feeling so alone, and the biggest thing you want to do if you're seeking help is to talk. And that made it hard. So the counselors over at the crisis center are very creative,
Mm-hmm.
and virtual Zoom and all those platforms were used, and to be able to reach out still to clients, being able to talk to them by phone.
Right.
So that helped a lot. And
Okay.
the ones that were in-house, they still got counseling, but it was done in in a creative way,
Okay.
so that you can still work with them.
Oh, excellent. You are listening to Family Matters brought to you by MAPS, and we are talking to Helen Trudeau, the new executive director of the Thompson Crisis Center, just about the operations of the crisis center, regardless of the one in Thompson or Flin Flon or the PA. So, Helen, just to continue on, we just finished talking about the effects of COVID on your operation. And I know you've been here for a short term when it comes to the crisis center, but what are you seeing as the gaps right now in services when we're talking about services to men or women, um, the LGBTQ two-spirited population? What are you seeing are the gaps currently based on the needs that they have?
Well, one of the biggest gaps I found is that if you look at the crisis center, we do serve women and children,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yeah.
And one of the gaps that I saw immediately was working with children.
Okay.
Children are also traumatized by what they see, what they experience, because they live in the home as well. And they don't often talk. If they're too young, they can't talk. If they're older, they won't talk. And I want to draw that out of them, because they need counseling as well, because this traumatizes young children and they carry it with them into adulthood if it's not dealt with at the time that they're experiencing this. So right now I went into looking at funding, and I did some proposals, and gratefully and thankfully we got funding, and we're going to use part of that funding to develop the children's program,
Excellent.
reaching out to kids. And one of the biggest things I noticed through puppet therapy, children tend to open up. They
Mm-hmm.
see something that they recognize in their childhood, and they open up to that puppet, and their feelings flow. And that's where the counselor can step in and start talking to that child. You look at music therapy, children reach out through music, through art, through all those areas. So those are the therapies I want to start developing through our children's program. So just to reach out to the kids, as you know, and as for the women, while they're going through that, like the children are going through that, they're also being worked with their counselors as well.
Oh, excellent. Well, you know what? I'm very glad to hear that. I'm make no secret. I grew up in a home where there was lots of violence, and being at a young age, I was about 5 or 6. There's no doubt that lots of things that you see at that young age you carry with you for your entire life. So, and each person has their own way of dealing with it. Some of it in not such a healthy manner, and some can be actually very unhealthy. And I won't, of course, go into the whole circle of violence. That that can be an entire 2 3 shows. So but yeah, I'm very glad to hear that. I think that's one thing that is I wouldn't say forgotten as much, but there's just not enough resources of to help with these children that are seeing this, that at times are part of the violence as well, and what we can do to help them. So, in saying that, when it comes to individuals who are experiencing violence in the home, or even individuals in a community that know that a family is experiencing violence. And once again, we go back to saying, you know what, some would say, well, this is between adults. No, not all the time. We know at times, quite often, children become part of the numbers. What can a person do, either relatives, people in the community, to help an individual and his or her kids that are experiencing violence?
One of the biggest things a lot of people are afraid to do is
Hmm.
approach the person,
Okay.
talk to the person. You can have open liners like saying, "Hey, I've noticed there's been a change. You're not your usual self. I don't see you like if you were a person that joked a lot, you're not joking." Those are the things that you can approach a person with. And then when they do start talking, to listen. That's
Hmm.
another thing. Listening is huge because when you're listening, they know that you care, and you're building a trusting relationship. So when that relationship is established, then you can go into saying there's always the nursing station if you're in the community to go reach out and see what resources there is for you to go.
Hmm.
You can always go to Northern Regional Health Authority, any
Hmm.
hospital or clinic that's in a township to go talk to somebody, someone you feel that you can trust. And that family member who did open up the book to bring out all that hurt can also go with them as that support person,
Right.
because that's the big thing, is feeling that support. They need that support because, like I said, violence is so isolated. You feel
Hmm.
so alone and you're so scared. You don't know who to go to. And often they don't know about us. That's why I want to build up public awareness to say, here we are, we're here for you. And that's why I'm working on that community engagement, getting out there, showing our face, who we are, what we
Hmm.
do, what services we have, and reaching out not just to the community in itself, but to the outlying communities, talking to the nursing stations, talking to chief and councils,
Hmm.
so that we can establish a relationship with them to work on education, building up public awareness through workshops, conferences.
Right. And you know what? I'm glad you mentioned chief and councils, mayors and councils. That leadership role helps to make it more accepting to talk about, I would think, in public. And I know when we first started MAPS years ago, that was one of the issues that we face, is that people just felt that, you know what, this is a personal issue. This is something that is between the husband and wife or the partner, and they don't like to get involved. They just think it's a private matter. But we know, based on the stats, we see the effects, as you mentioned, on the children and so on. This is not a private matter. This
Hmm.
does affect our society as a whole. One of the things we mentioned about gangs and so on. Why is it that so many of our young people at times join gangs? And one of the things they say is that it makes them feel safer. So you have to ask yourself, if join a gang makes you feel safer than being at home.
Well, not
Yeah,
even that.
yeah,
Well, including that,
yeah.
they also usually gangs, and I'm just speculating from what I've seen from my own experiences, life experiences, they want that feeling of belonging.
Right.
That's the big thing. So when they're in a gang,
Hmm.
they belong to something. So that's why when you start young with them and start talking about the experiences that they're experiencing now, that, hey, this is a safe place for me to share those feelings where I feel I belong. I'm accepted here. So they can open up those hard feelings that they wanted to say. So that's why using these therapies, it goes down to where they are at. Then they can trust and start opening. And I've seen it happen. And it's a very emotional thing to watch. I've wept at some sessions that I've seen with children opening up, and it's amazing. These therapies are just amazing.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much, Helen. I know we can spend a lot more time. I'm afraid our time is up for this show, but thank you for the time. Can you state the contact information for you if anyone wants to again in
Yeah,
touch with
sure.
you?
Before I do, I just wanted
Sure.
to mention we mentioned the marginalized groups,
Right.
the women. I forgot to mention that we're right now increasing training
Okay.
and trying to find supports to meet those marginalized groups,
Okay.
especially like unsheltered substance abuse is huge.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that we find that we're seeing in the shelter. So we're trying to reach out in those areas as well, and also try to get a better understanding in supporting the LBG group.
Yes.
That is huge
Yeah.
because they need to know we're not here to judge. We're
Hmm.
here to accept and we're here to help you.
Absolutely.
And that's a huge piece because right away it's the stigma
Hmm.
of what happens in society. And right now coming into the scene new, working with Moz, because right now Moz has a great project that's going on breaking down those barriers with the LGBT group, and I'm working with them right now. So that's what we're doing right now at
Okay.
the Crisis Center. And our contact information is 204
Hmm.
677 9668 is our main crisis line.
His main prize.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can't give the, of course, the address.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think if for our listeners in the Paw area or Flin Flon, I'm sure they can also phone that number to get in touch with their closest service provider as well. So Helen, thank you again. And we'll be bringing you back later on once you finish perhaps your first year, and then you can tell us about your experience. You have been listening to Family Matters. Thank you for joining us, and I hope everyone has a great day.
thank you.
Thank you.